Erev Tov Kasaria, Boker Tov in the Berkshires, and greetings to friends of Israel around the United States, around Israel, and indeed around the world. My name is Wayne Firestone, and I'm the Executive Director of the America-Israel Friendship League. And it's my pleasure on this Sunday to share some insights and a behind-the-scene look at Silicon Wadi, Startup Nation, Israel, Medinat Israel, whatever you want to call by an endearing name, Israel that creates new things and brings it into the world. We're going to be looking at that in depth in the startup culture. Indeed, Israel's received a lot of accolades in the markets and in popular technology for many new ideas that have come out of Israel. We're going to be exploring a couple of those today, and indeed the ecosystem that helps create that. Before we get into it with our amazing panel that we have here today, I want to, just by frame of reference, ask any of our participants who are with us live on Zoom or on Facebook, maybe you could just put into the chat one of your favorite startups, a startup company that sort of took you by surprise and brought something into the world or your little world that made your life better, or someone in your family or friends. So if you have a favorite startup, we know some of the big ones. It could be from Israel, it could be from elsewhere, but put it in the chat so we'll at least have a frame of reference of what kind of startups that have had the greatest impact on you. As I said, Waze, of course, becomes the first one that I see in the chat. Certainly a very popular one, and one that many of us use on a regular basis. But as we know, the moment we're living in, we've seen lots of different changes in technology, change paradigms. So one of our Chaim's refers to Google. I mean, can we even imagine? I can, because I remember pre-Google, what it was like to do research. So for each of these different technologies, we've created whole new waves of innovation in lots of different sectors. We're going to be joined by three people today. Tut Cheney, the co-founder and CEO of Sorona Partners, is an entrepreneur and is passionate about enabling businesses, enabling entrepreneurs, making new things happen. She's going to be sandwiched on the panel today between two of those upcoming startups. And so we'll hear from both the startup founders themselves and someone who has an inkling, has a sense that they're onto something and is trying to help them guide in their path. And Tut wins the award hands down for greatest name of a panelist on our entire series so far. Tal Amram is the CEO and founder of Crembo. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that may be because Crembo has very fond memories for me and my kids. He's the CEO and previously of a leading software company and media company, and also led a startup to global scale, operating in over 120 different countries. And finally, and actually kicking us off on this panel today, is Kyle Giddens. He is the CEO and founder of Medcase and defines himself as a serial entrepreneur. And that's not someone in the food industry. He's actually in artificial intelligence. People in the know just call that AI. And we're hoping today to move beyond the abbreviations and hear a little bit today about how some of the things that Kyle and the other panelists are working on are quite possibly going to become the realities of our future. So Kyle, let me turn over to you and share with us a little bit about your company, and is that really you, or is it some bot that's talking to us from Tel Aviv somewhere?
Yeah, that is the future. We're not quite there yet. That's not what we're building, but it's definitely on the horizon. Thank you so much for having me here, and all the guests and panelists and all the viewers from all abroad. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate, put them in the chat window, and happy to to answer them. I'm here to tell you a little bit about what we're building, but also the journey on how to get there. So I'm Kyle Giddens. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Medcase, and I'm here to talk about the company, how we got here, how we evolved as a startup, finding product market fits, and where we see the world going forward, and just thinking about innovation a little bit differently. So what is Medcase? Well, Medcase is enabling healthcare globally, but locally. And what that means is we built a global marketplace of healthcare data and access to healthcare workers for on-demand work. If you're familiar with Upwork or Fiverr, another Israeli company that just IPO'd recently, they built a marketplace for work. We decided to focus specifically on the healthcare sector so that anybody, any business, anywhere could find the providers or healthcare professionals available for work. And what work could that be? Well, we're pretty familiar in COVID times about telehealth, where you call the doctor and speak to a doctor on your phone. But a lot of companies lack the resources to scale a clinical network across multiple countries or even across multiple states. And so we help them do that in the back end. We also help with R&D in data labeling or UI, UX and different surveys. So really any business can utilize our physician network for whatever their questions or any elements that they need. And you can find us on medcase.health. All one word, just type it into Google, and they're actually even one of our customers. But and since we moved into healthcare, it's been nothing but growth month over month, year over year, and it's been actually a wonderful, wonderful thing because the nature of a business is not only to do good, be good, but also to eventually return a investment for its shareholders and also for the world. And it always hasn't been up and to the right, which is what you want to see in companies. Actually, we started off the company as a more broader base as EdgeCase AI, which was focused on one specific subsector of AI, focusing on data labeling. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but you need people to train artificial intelligence or computers how to think. And if you have kids or even anybody else, you have to give them lots of examples so that they generalize and they actually learn, what a horse is or what a car is and so on and so forth. So an AI is actually really good at pattern recognition. And so you need manual physical labor to actually draw on an image or video and say, this is a car, these are glasses, this is a nose, and so on and so forth. And given enough examples, the AI will learn. And so in the early iteration of the company, before we rebranded to Medcase, we were providing this service and software to companies to label better at scale to train their AI algorithms. And what I'm trying to tell you is, in bringing this up, is that a company and an idea as it starts is not necessarily what the company is and the idea for where it is a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, because a company as a whole is situated on finding what is known as product market fit, or in other words, is hitting the bullseye. And that's really what we're all about, and why we migrated to healthcare is because that's where the market and our customers were pulling us towards. And really, when speaking with a therapist or your friend or anything, it's all about listening as much as it is about communicating. And so you have to listen to what the market is willing to do with you. And from there, you iterate and you refine what product you're bringing to market. And, what we were bringing to market was very great, but the demand was only so much. And when you really hit the bullseye, like we did in terms of what we're doing in healthcare, you have overwhelming demand and so much demand that you can barely keep up with it. And that shows you that you really found the sweet spot for growth. And what is that sweet spot for growth? Well, Steve Jobs, showed us with his phone and the iPhone that it wasn't as much about packaging, about new technology or the best technology, but was packaging technology in a simple and easy, frictionless setting. So of course there was the BlackBerry before, of course there was the Nokia before, but at the end of the day, it was breaking down the friction that made the market opportunity so large. And so too, in what we're doing, we broke down the friction in terms of access to healthcare data and access to clinicians, that it allowed the market to react and start purchasing at a hyper growth way. And what the key takeaway from that is that it's all about making things easier for people. And when you make things easier for people or businesses, people are very happy because you help them, save them time, and time is money. And that's really the end result there. So when we look to a post-COVID world, we must look at what we can do in ourselves and others and our businesses and everything else in between as to how to reduce friction in terms of different elements and how to do that on a global sense. And that's why I actually love what the America-Israel Friendship League is doing, because it's saying that, we're better together, and by working together, we can do great things, not only in Israel, not only in America, but across borders and really around the world. And that's a beautiful thing, because that's the same ethos of our company, because we really believe that healthcare is global, and that by reducing friction for access to doctors and data, that better outcomes will be achieved. So really the rising tide lifts all boats. And that's why today we're available, working with customers in 22 different countries and growing, and why we really believe in a future where you can gain access to better opportunities, and we're enabling that. And we really believe that the next $1 billion of new companies will be built off of our platform and our marketplace in the similar way that new companies and products and services were built off of Airbnb and Upwork and Fiverr and the like. So, if you have any questions, you think you can help, you just want to chat, I'm always happy to discuss. This is my private email. You can reach me at kyle@medcase.health. And I'm really here to help and assist, and also learn from everybody around me, because I think that's how I become a better person and a better leader, and everything else in between. So I hope you enjoyed my short spiel, and I bring it back to you.
Kyle, not every CEO gives out their personal email in public forums. So you already sort of demonstrated one of your own values and approaches to transparency. And maybe at this stage in the company, it's a great way to meet new people who understand your product and get feedback from them, etc. So appreciate both the shout out to the work we're trying to do, as well as your joining us today. As I watch you, between these two entrepreneurs that you brought together in your company, I'm trying to think about the questions you're asking yourself as you evaluate partners for Sirona Partners. Because it sounds like the idea they come may be coming to you with, or the initial technology or approach, may be one that you already know is going to be somewhere else by the time it actually begins to mature and introduce itself beyond the startup phase. So take a step back from this, the exciting world of the actual apps, of the people working, and tell us a little about your own philosophy of relating to these kind of entrepreneurs that you love to empower and enable, recognizing that in doing so, they're taking a lot of risk, but also you're taking a lot of risk, and that's sort of the nature of the beast. So, what's your secret sauce? What do you do to help identify the right partners for your venture?
So you're spot on, Wayne. It's eventually all about people. In 60-70% of the cases, you would pivot. Like the idea that we accept initially or invest in initially, in 60% or even more, 70% of the cases is not the same idea that would bring the company to success. I can tell you that, for example, one of our unicorns today has become a unicorn in their fourth pivot. They've been trying 3 different types of projects, completely different, and that they didn't kick off. But the fourth one, within a year and a half, became $1 billion company. So at the end of the day, it's all about the people. And as a person, as an ecosystem maker, like as an investor and an ecosystem maker, the thing we need to identify properly is the velocity of the individuals, of the entrepreneurs, the vision of the entrepreneur, the guts that the entrepreneur has, the agility. And I have more stories, I think, in the Q&A later on. I can give you a few examples of, for example, during COVID, which companies we had that eventually closed down and what are the characteristics of their entrepreneurs, and which companies have actually made it and crossed through this period, which is fascinating. But speaking of people, actually, I prepared a small presentation for the crowd here with us. Ultimately, speaking about people. So, do you want me to share it? Okay. All right. So, my name is Tut, as Wayne said, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. My story begins when I was about 20. I built for my first company, which was an event management company, specifically for kids. Then I was involved in leading the youth leadership program in the Tel Aviv municipality. After selling this first company, I led marketing and sales for a German corporation called Festo, the Israeli subsidiary, which is very far from children. It's an industrial manufacturer selling industrial automation. So I did that for a while. And then I opened a second company called Men Group, where we did economic and entrepreneurial development projects. So I literally traveled the world and worked with organizations like the World Bank Group and the European Commission, the Swiss government, that has a lot of capital, but they don't really have an ability to execute projects. So they issue tenders, and they hope that organizations would apply for those tenders and would execute the projects. So for example, we had a 1.5 million euro project in 5 different countries in the Balkan region. And we built an acceleration program for 350 companies there in the Balkan region, which was just enormous. It's a massive operation. I had a project in Guatemala where I worked with medium-sized businesses, and in Ethiopia a project that was meant to support the local businesses to understand what is branding and how to form their businesses from being just a product thing to a product that has a brand that has values and emotions behind it. So different types of projects. I did that for 5 years, which was fascinating. And then in 2017, I decided it's time to flip the coin. And from working with entrepreneurs that are more business oriented around the world and bringing the startup nation to them, to flip the coin, to go back to Israel and to basically work with Israeli entrepreneurs that are naturally more product savvy and more technology savvy and less business oriented, and to bring the ability to scale and to build up businesses back to the Israeli market, back to the startup nation, with the ambition and the passion to turn the startup nation into the scale-up nation, into an enterprise nation. That's what I had in my heart when I came back to Israel in 2017. And when we built Sarona, and Sarona, I'll tell you more about it, but this is where we have the luxury to work with entrepreneurs that are so amazing, like Kyle and like Tal, that are building companies like Medcase and Crimbo, and basically want to change the world in their own special way. So my way of changing the world is helping those entrepreneurs, helping those companies to form and to build a structure for those entrepreneurs to build their companies better, faster, and larger. So what are we going to speak about today? We're going to speak about creation. Not just creation of value, of business, of wealth, of technology, and essentially of innovation. Now, innovation is the notion of starting something new, something that doesn't necessarily was existence before, a new combination of things, or a completely new thing that is brought out there to the world. But starting is relatively easy. Like you have an idea, you want to do something new. It happens to all of us where suddenly we have a breakthrough idea. But the challenge is to pursue with it, to continue, to make it last. That's the biggest challenge of innovation. How do you make something last? Something that started as a sprout. How do you nurture it so it can become a tree, so it can become a forest? That's the biggest challenge. And I want to tell you a story. Back in 2015, I went to the Money 2020 conference, which is a big fintech convention back when the world still could do physical events. And I had a very interesting discussion there with one of the innovation team of Bank of America. And he told me, you know, for me as a big bank, I don't have a problem like to innovate really, because I have all the capital in the world. Like whatever I need, whoever I need to recruit, whatever I need to do, I have the money. And moreover, I also have the technology because I can buy the technology. But how? How do you change the people that are already working with me in my departments, that are used to do what they're doing, that don't want to change, that are afraid of innovation? How do you change their mindset? And that was a very fascinating discussion, because at the end of the day, what is a mindset? The mindset of people is usually, they don't have tolerance for risk. They're not innovation savvy. They like comfort. They're not really creative, but how do you make them become this way? Can you make them become this way? So I told him, look at Israel. Israel is a place that is basically a startup. It's 73 years old. Compared to other nations in the world, it's a tiny baby. And when Israel was formed, we had nothing. We didn't have capital. We definitely didn't have technology. What we only had was people. This is what built up Israel. People with the right mindsets of building, mindsets of pioneering, mindsets of not giving up, mindsets of creativity and innovation. How do you take a swamp and make it inhabitable? How do you do that? This is Tel Aviv in the 1960s. And this is Tel Aviv in 2021, 73 years old. And that's the change that it's managed to create. So the landscape has changed tremendously. But the mindsets of people, of the Israeli people, that didn't change. The same pioneers that built up the country, that fought to create something from zero to something. These are the same people that are building the Wazes of today, the Fivers of today. These are the people with the same mindsets of questioning, asking, not giving up, not taking the things for granted. And these are the people that built the country. And numbers show you cannot argue with the facts of numbers. We have over 7,000 active startup companies. For a country of 8 million people, that's quite a lot. Just last year in 2020, over $15 billion were the exits of Israeli startup companies. And just the first half of 2021, $11.9 billion were invested in VC capital in Israeli-led startup companies. That's unbelievable. But that is the result of the mindset of people. It's all about people. Everything comes down to who the people are, what they strive to be, and what they have in their mind. How do they solve problems from the small to the big? And we're also first in so many things. And for a country that is based in such a complex geography, with such complex day-to-day and war all over the place, and we don't have ease on the day-to-day where we live. But still, we managed to take a country that was a swamp and turn it into a technology capital, a world leading. We were just announced a month ago, first in the world in the number of unicorn companies per capita. We have more unicorn companies than India, which is, it's just insane. I mean, I'm in the industry and it's hard for me to grasp. So this is why I'm so passionate about this industry, because there is so much to do, that the potential is huge, and that makes excitement huge, and the ceiling is unseen. And the contribution of the high-tech industry to the Israeli economy is massive and uncomparable to the relation of how many companies you have in Israel that are startups and are high-tech oriented versus the non-high-tech, and versus the contribution of the high-tech sector into the economy and the country. So this is why I'm so passionate about this industry. And this is why I built Sarona with my two partners. And Sarona is today the largest startup ecosystem in Israel. We have over 250 companies in our portfolio today. We have 3 unicorns. We've made 5 exits in the past 3.5 years. And our companies have reached an accumulated value of over $5 billion. And as said, the reason why I do this and wake up every morning with sparks in my eyes is because of the people. It's because of the potential of the people, like the people like Kyle and like Tal, that have a dream, you know, they have a vision. And my vision is to make their life easier as far as we can. And so that was me. And what Sarona does is that we work both with startups, with corporations, and with investors. We accelerate startup companies all the way from the product market fit, from the very infancy up to their scale and Series B. We work with multinational corporations that wants to tap into the Israeli market and collaborate with startup companies in Israeli technology. And of course, we work with investors from across the span, high net worth and family offices that are investing in our funds, and venture capitalists that are co-investing alongside us. And we do that in over 20 verticals where we have our fortes. So this is us, and that was me. I hope I wasn't too long, and I would love to be in touch with any of you that feels like they have a passion to be connected with the Israeli startup scene. Yeah, open. This is my email, and it is my personal email as well. My phone is there as well, so feel free to reach out. Very glad to form partnerships. We are very partnership oriented, and as I guess you can tell, people oriented. So yeah, this is me. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Wayne.
Tud, thank you so much for sharing both the mindsets and the landscapes and giving us, sort of that 10,000 foot view, both of Tel Aviv and of Startup Nation more broadly. I think it was really helpful in terms of thinking about how does the ecosystem build, who are the people behind it, meeting Kyle and now Tal. I know you told me beforehand the origin of your name Toot is a berry in Hebrew, but in English, Toot is the sound of the Pied Piper. Toot is music that brings people together to follow a certain path, and certainly Kyle and Tal are great examples of the people that who you define in that entrepreneurship space. Tal, I'm assuming you might have been able to retire after the first round of doing a startup that goes to scale, but you don't seem like you're finished. It seems like you're raring and going in a very, very big marketplace that's emerged. Tell us a little bit about your journey and now what you're doing with Krembo.
Yeah, we seen in Hebrew, start your fastest and then speed up. So that's what we're trying to do. And thanks to Toot, now I feel even more Zionist, taking her points. And hopefully I'll meet the expectations of it. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it, Wayne?
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for having us this morning. My name is Tal. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Krembo. I think that everyone pretty much knows that digital assets are the next step in revolutionizing our economy, regardless to the type of the asset itself, whether it's a Bitcoin, which represents a store of value, if it's an Ethereum, which is a utility token, if it's a country-issued currency, like what China is doing with its yuan, or if it's a security token, which is basically like a stock. But basically, if you look at the entire market, it's pretty much obvious that the next years will be the years of digital assets. And the market trends actually support that. We see in the past years, we see an exponential growth in the number of Bitcoin users. It's like a COVID-like graph, right? Alongside a major drop actually in the demand for traditional assets. Whether it's in Europe or anywhere else, that's the trends, that's what we see. And basically those trends are, as you can see, started from 2016 basically until today, and they're actually growing in a sense. Having said that, 99% of world's population haven't acquired any digital assets because it's cumbersome, because it's complicated, because the process is not well known to end customers, because you have limited sources, because you're working with private companies that you have to trust and deposit your funds in advance to. Because as end customers, we're actually have a habit of buying a financial product from a local trusted financial institution, not from private companies. Therefore, the current offering, which is by exchanges, as they're named, simply doesn't work. And if you think of it, the best option is to buy an asset, a digital asset like Bitcoin or any other asset, from your local trusted financial institution, whether you buy your stocks or you buy any other financial product. But when you talk to financial institutions, they face many market barriers. So they don't know how to tackle the liquidity, meaning where to get those assets from. They lack the knowledge and skills in a way. They don't know how to tackle regulation. Think of KYC, know your customer, and AML, anti-money laundering in digital assets. It's an issue. They don't have the technology. It's a different technology than their core banking. It's an issue to manage the risks. And basically, they don't know how to create value facing those exchanges. So what happens is that they stay out of this market, even today. That's exactly what Crimbo solves. Crimbo enables financial institutions to offer digital assets, by the way, any asset, not security tokens, but basically any asset, while overcoming all of their obstacles in an easy way. What we do is offer them a holistic solution that covers all of their needs, meaning A, we cover the technology. So they get a SaaS or an API-based solution, so they can offer those assets to their end customers. With an easy onboarding, they can have it in their branch or online offering. We cover all of the regulation aspects, meaning how do you do the AML and KYC on digital assets, which is an issue today. So we cover that as well and give them the comfort of offering those assets. And one of the main issues that we're offering, which is unique, is a concept of network that enables them to do global settlement between themselves, meaning a bank can buy an asset from another bank or from another financial institution, all in a digital way, all on the blockchain, meaning you also get the network effect, but you also get the benefits of working on a blockchain, which is transparent, which actually eliminates the counterparty risk in that sense. So it is unique because the concept is unique. Most of the offering today are B2C offerings, not B2B ones. And we're actually unique in that sense. And not just that, we're also offering a better accessibility to the end customer because he's buying from his local trusted financial institution. As Kyle mentioned, we're actually global and local because we're enabling financial institutions everywhere to offer those assets, but basically those financial institutions offer a local service. We call it global in that way. We enable new sources of liquidity and actually better rates as well. And one of the issues with those assets is how clean they are, meaning which hands were there previously. And in that sense, we're actually offering only assets that are clean assets in that sense. We offer immediate and global settlement, and we offer a concept which is regulated according to the highest standards. So in that sense, that's an offering which is disruptive, which no one offers today. And as we're not a bank, we're actually an entity which is agnostic in that sense, then everyone can connect to us and they'll get the same service, same pricing, all is on the blockchain, everything is transparent. So everyone can see that they're getting the same offering, same prices, and we're creating something new in that space. We're happy that we're making some waves. I think that we're making waves just because the offering is a bit different and we tackled that service and that market in a different way. Again, not a B2C, a B2B, not directly through financial institutions. And I have to admit, when we kicked off, most people told us, why are you doing it as such? I mean, this market should be decentralized. Everything should be decentralized. You're giving the power back to financial institutions. And it sounded a bit weird to those crypto enthusiasts. And we said, guys, without them, the market will not grow. The market will not be there. And again, even today, 0.5% of world's population actually bought an asset, meaning if we don't have the financial institutions in this market, it will never grow. And that's what we're trying to solve, both to the financial institutions and both to the end customer's point of view. Obviously, the US is the largest crypto market. Today, actually, we work mainly in Europe, but looking at the US as our next market, obviously, it's the biggest market and the most interesting market. So anyone in the audience or watching us later on that would like to discuss partnerships or any other concept, feel free to reach out. That's my email, by the way, Wayne, email and phone number, both personal ones. So people can reach out. We believe in the discussion. So in that sense, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to leave it if you need, and happy to answer any questions, Wayne.
I'm still just sort of pinching myself about 3 CEOs of anything today. I just couldn't even imagine 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, that level of desire to, have direct interaction. And that may also just be a function of the other mediums in which we're very much in contact directly. It's really helpful. So let me return to Kyle now. There are some questions in the chat just for clarification about the your company's focus. So Tal was very clear that they're a business to business, and they've avoided, going the direct customer route. One of the questions we had from Leslie is asking about whether you are actually connecting up patients to the doctors and data that you're talking about, or is your marketplace the other providers and that you're trying to connect together?
Yeah, so our company, that's a great question. Thanks, Leslie. Our company is focused on enterprises and startups. So we don't connect directly to the end customer or patient, or it's different institutions that are providing telehealth or other services are using our clinical marketplace to find those clinicians. So if I needed a doctor, I'd go to a telehealth or see my local doctor. But if that telehealth company needed more clinicians, they would access those clinicians through our marketplace network. So we are what is known as B2B, or business to business, not B2C or business to consumer.
And Kyle, you referred to that journey that you made in following the marketplace a little bit. And I mean, was it actually COVID and what was that the period, or what were some of those milestones in that transition that led you specifically to where you're at today?
Well, we made a series of small bets with different verticals. I saw somebody had that question at the start of our company's history. And in 2018, 2019, we added healthcare as one of those verticals to provide clinicians for data labeling and data annotation. And we had a number of marquee customers use us for that. And we listened to them, and we saw that was something that was very helpful for them. And then we invested from the company's cash flows into growing that side of the business. And that's how we evolved into Medcase. And at the beginning of COVID, it was one of the verticals, but the primary vertical. And then there was such a high demand during COVID at the beginning of this whole tragedy and everything that we're all living in and coping with, that skyrocketed demand. And so then it became the focus, from one of the focuses to the focus. So that was sort of the evolution that occurred there.
Wow. So essentially your business model allowed you to be in a number of different sectors beforehand. And then you just sort of seized the opportunity, understanding that COVID was going to just sort of disrupt the healthcare market in many different ways and need new kind of solutions. So that's sort of when you double down in that particular sector.
Yeah, I'm not saying we were like Nostradamus and we saw the future, but what we did is we listened to the market and what our customers wanted, and when they wanted more and more in multiple geographies with multiple specialties, then we knew that we were onto something, and we made the investment. I'm sure it's much easier if we said, oh, we saw the writing on the wall and we predicted the future and everything like that. But really, business and entrepreneurship is an iterative process where you're constantly testing hypotheses with data, and nothing says better data than customers willing to pay for a product or service that fulfills a need for them. And we're quite lucky and resourceful that we were positioned in order to take full advantage of both those things to provide better health outcomes and better health information and so on and so forth with our partners.
Yeah, well, you said you connected data and doctors, and those are certainly. I guess if we looked at Google searches on those two topics related to medical topics, I'm guessing those numbers have really escalated significantly, and obviously, even as you said, even before COVID started. Tal, you made a reference to being in both. A market that is both global and local. At the same time, people need, capital. They need to be able to make transactions, for their personal daily lives. But they're buying things now from China and from Israel and from all over the world if they want to. Very much a global market. What do you see as the biggest barrier now for? You could certainly see the trend line that you were referring to for cryptocurrency, but what do you see as the barriers that need to be overcome at this point?
So mainly not for us, but for the end customers, the barrier is the entry point, meaning what we call fiat to crypto or crypto to fiat. Fiat is the traditional money, and crypto is obviously any cryptocurrency. So it's like mixing a bit oil and water. It doesn't mix in that sense. And that point of buying the first asset is always an issue. And that's why most people, the average Joe and even savvy ones, are actually avoiding that. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what it means to have a wallet. Where can I buy it from? Who's a well-known entity and who's not? Is Binance better than Coinbase? So it's an issue that leaves most people out of this market. And I'm not talking even about reputation and other stuff of digital assets in a general note. And that's why we believe that if you're buying, basically, if you look at a financial institution, it provides you only one thing and only one thing, which is trust. You buy from him because you trust him. You deposit your funds because you trust him. You know that if we all ran to the banks, they probably have 9 to 11% of our money. But we still don't run to the banks because we trust them. And that option of buying from a local trusted financial institution is what we believe the market needs. By the way, from the end customer's point of view, but also from the financial institution's point of view, meaning they would like to join this market, but again, face many barriers. So in that sense, I think that's the main issue, the entry point.
Interesting. You made a reference earlier to this sort of unique insight you have about the entrepreneurs and ventures that sort of faded away when COVID hit, and those that actually, put the foot on the accelerator, like your two co-panelists today. What else can you share from your vantage point that you saw about this recent period that stands out? First of all, did you see more ventures coming forward as a result of the disruption globally, or was it about the same but just different people who were better able to make that pivot?
So obviously you had the cases where the changes of the market stimulated certain products over others. Like, for example, the shift Kyle mentioned is definitely good impact, impacted good by COVID because of the need of medical, because of the increase of awareness for medical, and so on. So we had, for example, a company that is providing 3D environments of retail. And obviously in the world where retail and wholesale that used to be based on personal relationships and traveling in order to do procurement, that's dead. So for an entire year, the procurement couldn't procure because they couldn't go and check samples. So if now you have a technology that can, create an identical 3D environment of the trading floor, of the retail floor or the wholesale floor, and allow the buyers to zoom in and out from the products to see the texture of products and so on, that made them grow. Like it probably shortened a year and a half from their company growth. So that's an example. Or we have another company that is doing global payroll and employment, like making it easier for companies to employ people around the world, whether it's freelancers or employees, without needing to open a local entity or being exposed to local regulations or taxes and so on. So that obviously was, circumstantial, and it's not like they started the idea because of COVID, but COVID was a very strong catalysator in order to stimulate their growth. And now they are a unicorn company. So yes, there are definitely companies that the change of the market made them boom. But in other cases, I can tell you that we have a company in the event space that you would probably say, okay, they should probably die in time like COVID. But no, the founders are so resilient. And they said, wow, we have this year, we can go a bit like close doors a little bit, become a bit more introverted, focus on our product. They completely changed their product. They developed an entirely new product from a product that was designed for physical events to a product that is designed for global events and global marketing purposes. And they now have 3 big pilots going on. And once these pilots are completed, they're going to have an investment going in the company.
So, I was thinking about the 2 reference points you had earlier in your presentation to people with good problems, lots of money, and looking for good ways to spend it. So Bank of America on the one hand, and the Swiss government doing their tenders on another. How do you then translate your understanding of their needs and their risk levels to connect them with Tal or with Kyle? Because certainly, I'm sure Tal would love an opportunity to pitch Bank of America, and Kyle would love to think about the Swiss medical system and being able to include them in his platform. How does that work to take it sort of to the next stage? At what stage are they going to be willing to meet some of Israel's ventures and solution makers?
You're so sharp, Wayne, you have no idea. That's precisely the challenge. And it's like a relationship. When you're dating, you need both sides to want. That's the first step. So when looking at those type of corporations, the first step is that they're actually open and they want to implement innovation and they want to partner with startup companies, and they understand that that's mandatory for them. And if they would not be exposed to those and they would not be open to partner with those, they're risking losing their business. Because we have many examples of companies like Kodak and others that actually lost their business because they were too afraid to innovate. So that's where it starts from. Then it goes into strategy and methodology. And the corporation goes through evolution phases that in the beginning, they're very afraid and they're trying to do some events and to expose themselves and to involve the people. Oftentimes, the biggest challenge is that the innovation arm and the management layer is dissembled from the actual people that needs to adopt the technology and the innovation. So for instance, I can connect Tal with the innovation person in Bank of America that I spoke with in the conference, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Bank of America would be able to adopt Tal's technology, because that needs to go through the department that actually does alternative assets investments. And maybe those guys are not really open to innovate now because they had a bad quarter and they need to deliver on their KPIs. So it takes many different factors to align, but the way we cannot make it perfect. We can hedge the risk in certain ways. And one of the ways where we hedge the risk is basically doing what we do at Sarona, or partnering, supporting our startups to partner with different sorts of system integrators and software integrators that in the same way, like Tal is saying, hey, the way to open the crypto world is to put trust into the equation. That's the same. You come and you say, okay, if Bank of America knows Cisco and Cisco can be an integrator for a technology provided by a startup, that makes trust, brings trust into the equation, and that makes Bank of America more prone to actually adopt these kind of technologies. So this is one way of the way it's being done. And there are others. Like today, many corporations are actually develop products with their own financing, but externally in a model called venture building. They often invest in companies, so they have more control over the company, and they sit in their boards. So there are different, structures of how corporations are doing that. But the market is maturing. I can tell you that, for example, in the agricultural world or the manufacturing world, 4 years ago, you didn't see so much openness coming from their sectors, and now you do. Now you do. Now they're coming. They want to partner. They want to find. They're open. So it's also trendy. Financial world, for instance, is much more open. They started their learning curve like 7-9 years ago. So now they're already pretty structured. They have their processes. They know how to partner with innovation. They make beta testings and mock environments, and they kind of pretty advanced on that side.
I'm gonna underline the word that I heard you say, and I heard Kyle and Tal say in different contexts: trust. So critical in the doctor-patient relationship, and privacy, so critical for banking and transactions. And then at the next level, creating that trust, with potentially large capital partners. Quick question before we wrap to Tal and Kyle. We had an early question from Karen asking about whether the next generation of Israelis has the skill set that's needed for all this advanced technology that's coming. So when each of you get your next round of finance and you're growing your companies, can you rely on the fact that you'll be able to hire the skilled labor that you need within Israel, or are you going to have to look beyond your borders as well as global enterprises? Quick responses, Tal and Kyle.
Yeah, I think that innovation is global. There's smart people everywhere. Not everybody's even at the office. I mean, as each one of us on this call, we're calling from the office. But it's really about openness and communication, trust, and finding the right people. What I love about Israel, and we have R&D center in Israel. But we also, hire people in the States and other geographies. Is just a can-do attitude of this is possible. Let's get it done. And I think it comes back to like an immigrant mindset of constantly growing, constantly learning, constantly going against the norm. And I think that when you find great people that have that challenge mindset and want to do better, that chutzpah, wherever it is, you double down on it. And ultimately, it comes down to good people doing good things. And I love good people. So that's how I see things. And it's good people that want to do good things, that create new companies and new innovations, because they want to see the world as a different place, and they say, well, why can't we do that? And that's what I love.
Tal, no shortage of chutzpah in Israel, right?
Yeah, so we're actually a UK entity, but yeah, the R&D is based in Israel. Basically, there's a lot of talent in Israel, like Tut mentioned earlier. The main issue for startups, by the way, these days, is that we're competing with the Googles and the big entities that actually have lots of funds and they can pay huge salaries. But what startups provide those engineers is something different. It's a different environment. It's a different approach. It's a different way for them to express themselves, to be involved in something from the beginning, and maybe profit from it later on, but not the immediate compensation that those companies can offer. But that's the main issue that we see here in Israel, not the amount of talent, but the competition on talent because of what happens in this space today.
Well, to Kyle, Tal, thanks for giving us a peek behind the curtain in Startup Nation. This has been a fascinating discussion. You made it very real and very concrete, and I'm so grateful for that. The big picture, as well as some examples of stories in progress, companies in growth phases, and just you're taking your time in such a calm way and sharing this with our audience. We're greatly appreciative. This coming Wednesday, for those of you that are interested in this space of entrepreneurship, you may be familiar with one of our presenters on our next webinar, Chemi Perez, who will be introducing innovation in a very different context, or maybe similar in some respects as well, but that's more in social innovation. We'll be meeting with the staff at the Perez Center, and we'll be focusing on social innovation and peacemaking as a legacy of Shimon Peres. So please come join us, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend if you're here in the States or elsewhere in Europe. And for those in Israel, Shavua Tov, a good start to the week. May everyone be healthy. We enjoyed spending this time with you today.
Thank you,
Thank
Wayne. Have a
you.
wonderful rest of the weekend.
Thank you, AIFL, and thank you all participants, Toots, Tal, and everybody else in between. Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.